He knew the world would not be the same. Few people laughed. Few people cried. Most people were silent. I remembered the line from the Hindu scripture, the Bhagavad Gita. Vishnu is trying to persuade the prince that he should do his duty, and to impress him takes on his multi-armed form and says, "Now I am become death, the destroyer of worlds." I suppose we all thought that one way or another.
Greetings everyone, here's the newest video for Supervillains Explored, and I have a big one for you today. Today we're going to be talking about one of the most notorious enemies of the Avengers, Kang the Conqueror. Kang is a really tough character for me to talk about, so I'm going to recount his origins to the best of my ability. I have no doubt that sometime during this video I'm going to make one mistake, so if I do, please correct me in the comments. Here it goes. Kang's real name is Nathaniel Richards. And yes, he is the actual descendant of Reed Richards of the Fantastic Four, but I'll get to that in a little bit. Richards lives in the 30th century of an alternate timeline. And so, when he learns about one of his ancestors, Dr. Doom, he is inspired by Doom to sort of become an enormously powerful and important figure of his own. So, he fashions himself a suit of armor made after Doom, and he names himself the Scarlet Centurion. And thus, he uses the time travel technology to travel back in time to ancient Egypt, and he decides to become a pharaoh named Rama-Tut. And also, it's interesting to note that during this time, he tried to recruit an heir to be his apprentice, and that heir was none other than An-Saba-Nur, the character who would later go on to be the incredibly infamous X-Men villain known as Apocalypse. But that's another story for another time. Eventually, the Fantastic Four travel back in time and they defeat Rama-Tut. He encounters a few more squabbles with the West Coast Avengers, who also travel back in time. So the Scarlet Centurion, eventually, he returns to his home century, and he decides to rename himself Kang the Conqueror. When he does this, he travels to another alternate timeline, which I believe is called Earth 689, and he kidnaps and he tricks the Avengers of that Earth into capturing and fighting every single other superpowered being on the planet. And in the process, he abducts the Avengers of the regular Earth, Earth 616, and he forces them to fight the other Avengers and all the other characters. Once again, he fails, and he seeks revenge on the Avengers. This time, and Kang's actual first appearance as Kang is in the Avengers comic Avengers number 8, which was in 1964. Written and drawn by Stan Lee and Jack Kirby. And in this comic, we actually see Kang for the first time, and we actually learn for the first time that he was Rama-Tut, and that he was the Scarlet Centurion. Eventually, Kang is defeated, and he returns home to his home century. In a couple comics later, he actually creates a robotic duplicate of Spider-Man, which he uses to attack the Avengers. Eventually, the real Spider-Man figures this out, and he destroys the robot, and thus Kang fails once again. And that's pretty much Kang's origin story. Eventually, Kang would create dozens of different alternate versions of himself by constantly using his time machine to basically go back in time and create several different alternate versions of himself. One of these alternate versions was a much older and far more wise version of Kang, who is named Immortus. Immortus would actually be appointed by the cosmic beings known as the Timekeepers to he would be responsible for cleaning the time stream and preventing the destruction of the universe. And whenever Kang used time travel to mess up or distort the time stream in any way, Immortus would be charged with going back and fixing things. So, in a sense, he was dubbed the custodian of the time stream. All the while this happens, Kang in his home century, he tries to conquer his original home city, and he falls in love with the princess of the city, Princess Ravonna, and he tries to impress her by trying to destroy and kill the Avengers, whom he brings into his own time period. Eventually, one of Kang's generals betrays him and tries to kill him, but during which Ravonna actually steps in front of his blasts, and she ends up dying, and thus the woman that Kang loves ends up dying in his arms. This wouldn't be the only attempt Kang would have at trying to have true love, because Kang hears of a prophecy of a woman for him named the Celestial Madonna, who actually turned out to be the Avengers member known as Mantis. When Kang tries to capture her, Immortus, his future self, the other version of Kang, basically tries to stop him. And eventually Immortus, along with the help of the Avengers, manages to stop him. However, Kang creates a new army for himself, a new army of mutant characters, and it ends up killing Mantis's husband, the Swordsman. Eventually, Kang tries to escape the time period, but Hawkeye uses Doctor Doom's time machine to go back in time and basically face Kang once and for all. Whereas Immortus, along with the help of the other Avengers, finally ends up defeating Kang, and Kang ends up accidentally killing himself. But Kang would eventually come back later. And wow, I have to say, explaining all that, Kang would eventually come back during the Secret Wars storyline in the 80s, and he would be used by the Beyonder as one of the most powerful members of the Supervillians. Eventually, Kang would recruit all the different versions of himself across the whole time stream and create an entire team of Kangs. Yeah, it's all really confusing. I've barely even scratched the surface of all the stuff that Kang has done. But to be honest, this is going to be one of those rare videos where I'm just saying, you know what? I've just explained the origin. I don't think I need to explain any more. But Kang is an awesome villain, and he definitely deserves to be in an Avengers movie at some point. Alright, later.